Welcome everyone, I am the Depressed Eeyore, and this is Arkham Horror the card game. It's been a while since I've last played, and I still have quite the backlog, so by the time you see this, it'll be like months in the future. But I wanted to go ahead and try out some new decks and new characters and see if we can keep this going. So we're going to be replaying the Dream Eaters this time around, and hopefully I'll make less mistakes. I did attempt to play Dream Eaters again with a different group of investigators, and I ended up just kind of quitting. I think I mentioned in my previous feedback that I wasn't sure if I hate this campaign or not, but I definitely did not like playing it blind. And I can kind of safely say there's a lot of issues I have with it, but I'm going to go ahead and play through it because it's not as bad as The Forgotten Age, which my board game group will be playing through, and we'll see if I'll survive through it. In any case, this will be for one thing I'll be doing different this time around is I'm going to have two separate saves for A group and B group. That way I don't have to constantly mess with the token bag. They'll just each have their own token bag to keep track of. So this will be for Team A, which will be, of course, the Dreaming side. We're going to be taking Daniela Rees and Winifred Habermock. So my goal for this is going to kind of play through the remaining characters I haven't played through yet, which is pretty much everyone but Agnes at this point. So, yeah. I have a little bit of experience playing with Daniela off screen and on some scrapped recordings in the past, so we'll see how this goes. Daniela Rees, the mechanic, entrepreneur, 4 willpower, 1 intelligence, 5 strength, and 2 agility. As a reaction, after an enemy attacks you, except on an attack of opportunity you provoked, even if that attack was cancelled, either deal 1 damage to that enemy or automatically evade it. As an Elder Sign effect, you get +1, and if you were attacked by an enemy this round, you automatically succeed instead. Relax, tough guy. I'll handle this. You stand over there and look pretty. She has 8 health and 6 sanity. So yeah, Daniela is really has a very solid stat line, as you can see. 4 willpower with 5 fight, especially for female investigators, because not many female investigators can have 5 fight. Obviously, she's not going to be good for investigating, and she won't be evading much besides using her ability. And her ability is actually really good. There's a lot of ways to soak and ignore attacks, especially with Guardian. So you can kind of just use this to constantly just deal damage as you're getting hit. I'm not sure how exactly it works against swarming, but I can look that up later. In any case, let's go over the deck. Deck size 30, Guardian level 0, Survivor 1 through 5, Neutral 0 to 5, and up to 5 other Survivor cards at level 0. So this is very similar to Lily Chen, who was essentially a mystic that becomes a Guardian, essentially. In this case, this is Daniela, who is a Guardian who becomes a Survivor. She has to have Mechanics Wrench, which is her exclusive, Mob Goons, which is her exclusive weakness, and 1 random basic weakness. Daniela always figured she had a good life. She had a loving, boisterous family. She had a steady job that used her brains and her hands. She had enough money to spend on fast cars, pretty girls, and her motorcycle, Gabrielle. Then her brother, Raymond, got caught up in some trouble. Her mother warned her to be careful, that darkness lay ahead. Daniela set a glass of water behind the door for her mother's sake to catch evil spirits, just as she'd been taught as a child. When Daniela awoke to find it shattered, she was determined to figure out what happened and fix it, just like she always did. So the deck here, as all I have off the side here are some bonded cards, which is the Soothing Melodies. And unlike Lily Chen, Daniela doesn't really get much benefit out of in the thick of it. For Lily Chen, you kind of want in the thick of it just so you can get more Guardian cards at the start. But for Daniela, you can get pretty much all the Guardian cards you need, and Survivor cards you're not that desperate for in most cases. Anyway, now one thing to note about Daniela is since she doesn't get access to any higher level Guardian cards, that means no stick to the plan or anything like that, or stand together or upgraded stand togethers. So she's going to be mostly just focusing on herself. All right, so as for our exclusive, we have the wrench. Where is it? I am blind. There it is, Mechanics Wrench. Item tool melee takes up 1 hand slot. Can be committed for 2 fights, or sorry, let's just say 2 fists and 1 wild. As a lightning bolt, she can exhaust it to choose an enemy at her location to make that enemy attack her. Of course, that's a way to forcefully trigger her ability. As an action, you can fight, and you can only use this ability against an enemy who has attacked you since the end of the last turn, and she'll get +2 fight for this and +1 damage. It's an interesting weapon. I've never really used it. For the short time I've played Daniela, I've never really made use of it. I just find myself just using other weapons instead. But committing it for essentially 3 fight is always nice. So, I mean, if you have literally nothing else, I suppose it could be useful. Her exclusive weakness is Mob Goons, which is Humanoid Criminal. 3 fight, 3 evade, and 3 health. Hunter, Daniela reads only as the prey. This enemy's attacks cannot be cancelled, and damage and horror dealt by this enemy's attacks is treated as direct. Depth is a family affair. Hits for 1 and 1, so 1 health and 1 sanity. Again, that criminal keyword, if you happen to be doing the house always wins, this does become aloof, which is pretty funny. But besides that, it's not that bad. 3 health, 3 fight is practically nothing. No retaliate you have to worry about. Compared to Rita's weakness, this is not that bad. And even if you can still use your ability against this, it's just the damage will go straight to her, which is not the end of the world. She can actually take hits pretty well. All right, and then the random weakness that we got is Narcolepsy, which has to be played is multiplayer only. Madness goes in your threat area, and you cannot take actions, trigger abilities, or play cards. As an action, wake up to discard Narcolepsy, and if you ever take any damage or horror, you can discard it. So this can be very, very dangerous if you get this while away from everyone else. But it's not too bad. Essentially, the action has to be done by somebody else, because obviously Daniela can't do actions while this is active. But when you do activate it, it gets discarded, and then you're good to go. So like at 1 action cost, just to take care of this is not the worst situation. I mean, there's definitely situations where it can get really nasty, like if you're right now in the middle of fighting a lot of enemies, or you just drew a bunch of enemies and Daniel has just fallen asleep, then you might run into some trouble there, because activating this does trigger provoke attacks opportunity. So yeah, depending on the timing, this can get pretty nasty, but if you can get rid of it as quickly as possible, then it's in your discard. And this deck doesn't really cycle through very much. All right. As for the rest of the deck, we'll talk about the Survivor cards. So I have 5 level 0 Survivor cards I can play with. One of them, of course, I went with Sparrow Mask, which is hands down the best defensive mask. It's anytime she takes damage, it'll recharge offerings, and then she can just use this to kind of help protect her against the Mythos phase. And then the rest of it is just skill cards. I went with Stunning Blows, which kind of helps with just evading enemies that have lots of health. Because one thing to note about survivors is survivors don't exactly have the best weapons. So having some means to at least, temporarily disable an enemy is kind of a plus in this case. Like, as much as I love to get hit by enemies with Daniela, eventually I would get worn down if I get hit by too many big monsters. And then the other is just Long Shot, because she already has 5 fight, and this will just make it so I can do a lot of extra damage on top of, things like Vicious Blow. All right, so those were her 5 Survivor cards. And then the rest of it is just, everything else is just as much extra damage and weapons as I can get. So weapon-wise, we're looking at an Enchanted Blade for now, which I'm probably going to replace with something else. What else? Of course, we got the Wrench. Where is it? Survival Knives. So we cannot upgrade these, which is unfortunate, but still, this is fantastic. If I ever get attacked, not only will I trigger Danielle's ability, I can then counterattack for 2 damage in return. So I want at least one of these in my hand as often as possible. And then I also have a Colt 32. This is a firearm that you don't see too often, mainly because it doesn't provide any accuracy. It doesn't have any plus fight, but it does have plus damage, and it has 6 ammo, and only costs 3 to get out. So yeah, this thing is actually pretty good. The only reason I don't have 2 of them in here and I have an Enchanted Blade in here is simply because Enchanted Blade is a relic. Right now, I don't have any other relic options, so I think that's pretty much the main reason why I have this. But yeah, Colt 32 with a person that already has 5 fight is pretty good. For her allies, we have 2 guard dogs, which of course will not be able to be upgraded, but anytime I put damage on the guard dog, it'll deal damage back to the enemy, which synergizes well with her ability. And then the other one is Tetsuo Mori, which is a very, very stable soak. 3 cost, 2/2 soak, ally police, 2 noble for his own good. Any damage that's dealt by investigators at her location can be applied to this guy. And if he is ever defeated, as a reaction, you can search through either your entire discard pile or the top 9 cards of your deck for an item asset and put it in your hand. So it's just a real good way to kind of soak hits while trying to get your items out. Everything else here, we do have some mercy caches for economy. We'll probably gradually upgrade those. Again, we don't have stick to the plan, so we will probably end up having to hope that we draw these a bit more often. We got some, let's see, those are mercy caches. Our hollowed mirror is our relic, or not a relic, our accessory. Relic, Occult Bless, limit 1 per deck, 2 cost to get out, willpower to commit. After it enters play, you grab your 3 soothing melodies, which are over here. You put 1 in your hand, and then the other 2 get shuffled in your deck. And then if it ever leaves play, you have to remove them. Soothing Melody, you can play it as a spell. 0 cost event, can be committed for a lot of symbols except for strength. Heals 2 damage or 2 horror or any combination. And it can be to any investigators and or allies at your location, and you draw a card. So just a pretty quick and easy way to get some healing. The only bad part about it is you have to spend an action and get out the mirror first, and it still takes an action to do Soothing Melody, but it's a pretty stable way of getting some healing without having to rely on things like first aid. We do also have Fleshboard, which is a 3 cost ritual. Takes up an arcane slot, has 4 charges on it, and it actually has 1/1 soak on itself. And then as a reaction, whenever she is dealt damage and or horror from an enemy attack, she can exhaust it and spend a charge to cancel 1 of that damage or horror. So this just increases her soak, and in a pinch, it can be used to, you can actually sacrifice it to soak a little bit of extra damage as well. It's kind of expensive, and but for characters like Daniela, it's pretty much built for her. She's even in the picture, but I've been more often than not been trying to get this into other decks, like Diana or something like that, but I haven't had much luck besides Daniela here. Let's see. So we got those soak, and all right, yeah, pretty much everything else is a bunch of events. So we got a couple dodges for canceling attacks. We do have some Scene of the Crimes just to get a little bit of extra clues. These will probably get replaced with something else in the future. We got some darings on the skill side. These just give you 3 wild for attacks and evades, but it does give the enemy retaliate and alert. Of course, if I do provoke retaliate on a retaliate attack, I think that still triggers my ability, but I'm not entirely certain. Also, this does let you draw a card after the test ends. Besides that, I forgot to mention we have some backpacks. Obviously we need a lot of ways to try to get our items as possible and our supplies, so I plan on upgrading these as soon as possible. Sorry, I'm a little all over the place. It's been a while since I've done this. We do have some Take Initiative, mostly for the Mythos phase. Speaking of another event, we got Toe to Toe. Spirit Tactic costs 0, can be committed for a fight or a foot. It's a fight, you deal +1 damage, and it's auto-successful, so you don't draw a token. As an additional cost to perform this, the chosen enemy does make an attack against you. So this is essentially 3 damage, because it's going to do 2 damage by itself, and then Daniela will deal damage with her ability. Also note that her ability has no limitations. As long as it's not an attack option she provokes, she will be able to do damage to anything that hits her. Or auto-evade them if that's something you really need to do. Let's see. Besides that... so we also have some Vicious Blows. We won't be able to upgrade them, but it is a source of extra damage. Like I mentioned, we're not going to have many options for damage for our weapons, so we just need to get as much as we can from other sources. And that's everything. So let's go ahead and move on to the next character. All right, Winifred Haberbach, the Aviatrix, criminal. 1 willpower, 3 intelligence, 3 fight, or 3 strength, and 5 agility. As a lightning bolt, if 2 different non-weakness cards you control are committed to a skill test, you draw 1 card, limit 1 per test. Elder Sign effect is +1, and after the test ends, for every 2 points you exceed by, you can return a card you committed to this test to your hand. I can top that, as her quote, and then she has 8 health and 7 sanity. I have never played this character before, but she's been really kind of interesting. The biggest thing that terrifies me about her is, of course, the 1 willpower. So the Mythos kind of just is just aimed to destroy her. But she had 3 fight, which you can kind of make work with some of the rogue weapons, and then of course that 5 agility. If you can get her stuff that can actually make use of that, which there are plenty in this game now, you can definitely take advantage of things like British Bulldog. Of course, we got the lockpicks, thieves kit, things like that. So she can actually She can actually kind of work with as either a flex, cleaver, or even a fighter in some cases. Back of the card. So deck size 30, rogue 0 to 5, neutral 0 to 5. Straightforward. She has to have anything you can do better, which is her exclusive, arrogance, which is her exclusive weakness, and 1 random basic weakness. Winifred Weithau, as her parents know her, Winnie to her friends, was one of the smartest kids in her reservation school. However, her reckless attitude and lack of respect for authority meant she often got herself into trouble. The course of her life changed forever when she found an old biplane in a farmer's garage and decided to take it out for a spin. The owner, a former pilot in the Great War, was awestruck by her natural talent and offered to teach her what he knew. Now Winnie is known as the Woman Without Fear, showing off her skills in barnstormers all across the country. That nickname would be tested when, during one of her shows, she spotted a creature she could scarcely describe, a thing with leathery wings and a single mutated pus-filled eye. Alright, let's see what we have in here. Oh yeah, that's right. For a second I forgot what my weakness there was. But yeah, there's not much to say about her deck building. It's literally just raw rogue. It's all rogue all the time. As you can see, I do have it in the thick of it with Winifred for this one. I'm going to probably go with 2 physical trauma for this, and just rely on allies to soak the damage. 2 of that experience is going to be going towards Karen's Obel, which of course is going to get us extra experience, and hopefully we never die. Also, we do have 2 different customizable cards to play around with. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at our exclusive. Anything I can do. Anything you can do. So anything you can do better. It's an innate developed, can only be committed on tests she's doing, and it commits for 6 wild. So yeah, just her exclusive is a skill card. That's all you have to say about it. Her exclusive weakness is also a skill card. It's arrogance flaw, commits for 1 wild, but the wild here counts as a -1 rather than a +1. You must commit arrogance to each eligible skill test you perform. The skill's icons subtract from your skill value instead of adding to it. If this test succeeds, return this skill to your hand. So this thing just becomes a pest for as long as possible. And generally what you want to do is try to get rid of it as quickly as you can so you can move on. And do note that it has to be a non-weakness card, so this doesn't even help with her ability. And then her random weakness is Chronophobia. Goes into her threat area, takes 2 actions to get rid of it, and while it's on her, at the end of each of her turns, she'll take 1 direct horror. So for the most part, I have to get rid of this as soon as I get it. The remaining experience points that I have, I went ahead and put towards easy mark, so I have 3 easy marks here. And then the rest of it, so my original Winifred deck that I made ended up being kind of more of an offense-oriented one with a little bit of flexing. But since I was running out of cleavers, I decided to go ahead and make this one into a full-on cleaving deck and see how it goes. So the big things to note, of course, is we need tools that actually make use of Winifred's stats. So we, of course, have 2 lockpicks. This is a card I tend to be kind of afraid of, at least the level 0 version. It's an item tool elicit, takes up a hand slot, can be committed for 1 intelligence. As an action, you exhaust it and then investigate, and you add your agility value to your skill value for this investigation. And if you do not succeed by at least 2, you discard it. So my experience with lockpicks, it's kind of expensive to get out. It costs 3. You can only use it once per turn, which is something that can definitely catch some people off guard. but there's definitely been a number of times where I would use this, get the auto fail, and then just immediately lose it. But if you are not like me, and not getting auto fails every other pull, it essentially makes it so she can investigate at 8s, and that's without any skill cards being added in. So the upgraded version, which I think only costs 1 experience, makes it so it actually has charges on it, and it will lose charges if you ever don't make the requirement. So you don't lose it immediately if you get an autofail. But for right now, it's going to be kind of a liability. The other item we have for our hand slots is, of course, Thieves Kit, which we played around with a while ago with Safina. And it's perfect for Winifred. She has 5 agility, so she can investigate at 5s, and if she succeeds, she can gain resources back. And she's going to definitely need as many resources as she can get. Besides that, we do have a few lucky cigarette cases. With her 5 in her stat, she can definitely make this work and get a bunch more cards. We definitely want to cycle through our deck as quickly as possible to get as many skill cards as we can. We do have some Leo DeLucas. These will probably be gradually replaced with somebody else, but for right now, it's a 6 cost, 2/2 soak, giving us additional actions. Not too many events. We do have some pilfers. These are really expensive. They cost 4, but it does allow you to investigate with your foot stat instead of your book. And if you succeed, you get 2 additional clues. So this can let you get 3 clues at a time, which can be very, very helpful. The big drawback, of course, is its cost. Any other events? Of course, we have Honed Instinct, which is just another way of getting us additional actions. Like I said, I'm going to try to make use of that 5-foot stat and just try to make, in the fact I have to commit a bunch of cards to trigger her ability, to get as many actions as possible. The other customizable card is Friends in Low Places. When you purchase Friends in Low Places, choose and record a trait on its upgrade sheet. This is a favor, by the way. It's an event, 0 cost, commits for 1 book, 1 foot. Look at the top 6 cards of your deck. For each looked at card with the chosen trait, you may spend 1 resource to add that card to your hand, shuffle the remaining cards into your deck. One thing to know about this card is the words "look at the top 6 cards." This means it's not an actual search check, it's not an actual search card, which means it doesn't actually get the benefit from. It doesn't give you the benefits, or you won't be able to trigger Mandy's ability with this, which is a little unfortunate. What you can do with the Friends in Low Places, there's a lot of options for getting more traits on this thing and making it cheaper to get cards, or you can also make it a lightning bolt. You can also expand its search range and things like that. You can also make it so you can play cards that you immediately get, or make the skill cards make the cards have additional wild icons for a round. But the big thing here is the trait I picked was innate, and that's because majority of my cards in this deck are innate. Anything you can do is actually innate as well. In fact, I think the only skill card that isn't innate right now is my Watch This. All right. So I think that's actually all the events. I think everything else is skills. Oh, actually, no, sorry. I do have one. You handle this one. This is just to throw this at somebody else to soak the mythos for her if she ever runs into another willpower check. It does give her 1 resource when she uses it, which is kind of helpful. But beyond that, it's kind of just there. All right. Of course, we have the easy marks we already talked about. But yeah, I think everything else here is skill cards. So obviously, we have the anything you can do better. We do have a couple Watch This, which are gambits. They commit for everything except for a book. And you can only commit it to skills you are performing. And as an additional cost, you could spend up to 3 resources. And if you succeed, you get double that amount back. So this is essentially a gamble. And if you succeed, you get a bunch of resources out of it. We do have some manual dexterities, which are innate. And of course, we'll be upgrading these in the future. Got some nimbles, which are also innate. Commits for 1 foot, and for each point you succeed the skill test by, you can immediately move to a connecting location up to 3 times. So this is just decent value. It definitely saves you a lot of actions moving. We got Opportunist here, which is committed for 1 wild, innate again. Can only be committed on skills she's performing, and if you succeed by 3 or more, you can return it to your hand instead of discarding it. So the idea here, of course, is to use this to help trigger Winifred's ability. and hopefully, don't draw the autofill. We do have some quick thinkings, of course, which just gets us more value with extra actions. It is also innate. And then we have unexpected courages, which just commit for 2 wild and are also innate. So that's like what, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We have 11 innate cards right now, and we'll probably get a few more in the future. Because I think Savant is also innate, so we'll gradually get there. Anyway, that's pretty much the gist of it. You want to get as many skill cards out as possible and kind of go from there. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the other team, BRB. All right, let's get to Team B. So both these characters I've played off screen at some point. I've also been in a board game group who had someone who played this character as well. But yeah, Alessandra I've played a little bit off screen. It's a character I'm interested in, but I don't know, I find her very awkward to use. So we'll see how this goes. Also, I didn't mention who the lead investigator was for the previous team, though you may saw the icon. Daniela is our lead investigator for Team A. For Team B, it's going to be Jacqueline Fine. Speaking of Jacqueline Fine, let's begin. Jacqueline Fine, the psychic, clairvoyant, 5 willpower, 3 intelligence, 2 strength, 2 agility. As a reaction, when an investigator at your location would reveal any number of chaos tokens, reveal 2 additional tokens. Of the revealed tokens, choose and cancel 2 non-auto-fail tokens or 1 auto-fail token, limit once per round. Elder Sign is +1, and if this effect is cancel or ignore, such as through her ability, you can draw a card. The future can be rewritten, and she has 6 health and 9 sanity. So, yeah, this ability is really good. Jacqueline Fine is usually seen as a very friendly for newbie type character because she helps deal with the most dangerous part of the game, which is, of course, drawing chaos tokens from the chaos bag. And there's also a lot of things you can do with her ability that can help with a number of other cards that let you draw lots of tokens, and you want certain types of tokens, such as symbols and things like that. One thing to note is anytime that you do cancel tokens, they do count as not being revealed. So in cases of like shriveling and stuff, it won't trigger it. All right. As for the other side of the card, deck size 30, Mystic 0 to 5, Neutral 0 to 5. Very, very simple, straightforward. Deck building requirements we got Arbiter of Fates as her exclusive, Dark Future as her exclusive weakness, and 1 random basic weakness. Blood, Fire, Destruction. Every night Jacqueline's dreams are filled with things that have not yet come to pass. At first I thought of these dreams as a terrible curse. However, as she began to control her visions and observe the events within in greater detail, she now understands they are no curse but a calling. The world is about to be plunged into 1,000 years of indescribable chaos, and only she knows the warning signs. Her dreams have never been wrong, but she cannot let the nightmares that haunt them become a reality. So yeah, I believe both Jacqueline and Winifred are they're from their own little investigator packs. I don't know if all the investigator packs are like this, but so far they've been only raw. Just 1 raw color for their deck building. So the good news is, as far as Mystic's concerned, Mystic 0 to 5 by itself is pretty much more than enough to make any sort of deck out of. As part of our deck, we do have Down the Rabbit Hole and Arcane Researches, which means we do start with 2 mental trauma. So let's go ahead and go over the deck itself. Exclusive Arbiter of Fates. Talent. 3-cost asset can be committed for a willpower, agility, and a wild. As a reaction, when you use her reaction ability, you can exhaust it to increase to make it so it doesn't count towards your limit. So usually it's once per round, but with this, it essentially just gets you an extra use per round. Yeah, if you ever get the opportunity, then the resources and time to play this, it's always good to have, because having 2 of these abilities is always good. Her exclusive weakness is Dark Future, Omen, End Times. It goes into your threat area, and while it's active, you cannot cancel any symbol tokens. So no Elder Sign, can't cancel Elder Signs, can't cancel auto fails, can't cancel any of the other symbols. You can cancel Bless and Curse, though we're not going to be worrying about that in this playthrough. And then at the end of her turn, she reveals 5 random tokens from the Chaos Bag. If the Elder Sign is revealed, you can discard Dark Future. So what this does is it pretty much shuts down her ability, because you generally don't want to use her ability when you can't cancel with symbols, because if you draw, like 3 skulls, it can be really, really bad. The good news is you can use your ability in response to the 5 random tokens that are being at the end of return, so you can at least draw 8, which is usually about half the bag, to try to find the Elder Sign. In my experience, usually Dark Future will do one of 2 things. Either you will immediately get rid of it, or it will stay with you for the entire scenario. So, like I said, it effectively just makes your ability blank, which is annoying. Do note it also means you can't cancel the Elder Sign, and they did that purely because the Elder Sign is only useful if you cancel it. So yeah, it's pretty rough. Her random weakness is Mob Enforcer, which I think we've played around with before. I'm always pretty wary about any additional enemy weaknesses, because they can be a bit rough. But this one is actually not too bad. I mean, it's definitely tanky. It's a 4 fight, 3 evade, and 3 health. Humanoid criminal. Only goes after bear, which is going to be Jacqueline. Has Hunter, and as an action, you can spend 4 resources to parlay and discard Mob Enforcer, and it hits for 1 damage, so it doesn't hit too hard. There's a lot of nice things about this. One is it is an enemy, which means Alessandra's parlay stuff will go well with that. Also, the action on here is a parlay ability, which will go well with Alessandra if she has the funds to spare. As always, I'm going to be kind of concerned about when I draw cards, because obviously if I draw a card, that's my last action, this guy can wail on you. But he only hits for 1, so it's not the worst situation to be in. But it can be really bad in situations where I haven't gotten my attack spells yet. And in those types of situations, I may be just trying to draw cards and hoping for the best. Also, it's with 3 health, it's not too bad if you happen to have things like Spectral Razor, which unfortunately this deck does not. Okay. Alright, as for the rest of the deck, this is a pretty standard Mystic deck. There's a couple things that stand out as differences for Jacqueline because of her ability, but we'll go ahead and go over the basics first. We have Rite of Seekings, which go well with Jacqueline, since you can try to hopefully prevent yourself from drawing the symbols. Same thing for Shrivelings. We got those going on. You can also use the other ones that are like Sixth Sense or Wither. But to be honest, I'm more of a fan of these ones that just pump out extra action compression. We do, of course, have some String of Curses, just in case. Let's see, on Cage of Soul, of course, to get the spells out. We've got Wards, of course. We have Deny Existences, as always. We've got Arcane Initiates to help get the spells out. That's why we are, of course, stacked up on spells as well. We've got the Promises of Power. And then really the big things that are different. We also have some redesigns for Cluven. But yeah, probably the big difference is I do have Storm of Spirits. Obviously, this campaign does have Swarms, so this can help wipe out Swarms pretty easily. And again, I can try to prevent myself from hurting myself with the symbol token. We do have Prescient, which commits for 1. It's a practice augury. Commits for 1 willpower. And you can declare even, odd, or symbol. And after this test ends, if the chaos token of the name type was revealed during this test, you may return a spell card from your discard pile. So this is essentially, I mean, what you can see from the picture, it's designed for Jacqueline Fine. Other things to note, of course, is we do have Defiance, which of course negates, you can choose to negate a symbol. So you can always use Jacqueline's Fine ability to help try to get that symbol, so you can ignore it. We do have Crystal Pendulum, only 1 in the deck. So instead of a Holy Rosary, Crystal Pendulum costs the same amount, but doesn't have any soak on it. It does provide +1 willpower. It's an item charm, goes in the accessory slot. Commits for 1 willpower, and as a reaction, whenever a skill test begins, you can exhaust it and name a number. If this test succeeds by that number or fails by that number, you draw 1 card. What I'll probably end up doing, and more often than not, is I will just declare. I'm gonna just make use of this thing here, where it says like what the minuses are, and I'm just gonna say, okay, anything that's this column, this row, is the number of passing and failing by, because it's just easy. Or I'll say if I draw this, because that's what I'm going to be basing it off of. Is I'm going to be basing off whatever negative modifier I'm going off of, because that's just easier than saying some arbitrary number. So if I do pass that, then I'll draw a card. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything besides the +1 willpower. I don't know if we played with Sorcanes yet. I've definitely become more of a fan of these. They cost 2 to get out. Item relic weapon melee takes a hand slot, which is usually something you have available for a mystic. Playing it doesn't provoke an attack opportunity, and as a reaction, after it enters play, you can immediately do its activate ability without paying its cost. Its activate ability, of course, is you exhaust it, and you can either fight or evade, and you get to use your willpower for it. So this is really good just to have in your hand, and when you need it, you can always use it as an evade. In most cases, I'll be using this for an evade, but sometimes I may just need to do 1 damage, and this can help. The biggest weakness for this thing is it does exhaust, so once it's out in play, it's kind of just a one-use do something with it. And then, of course, the big thing, Voice of Ra, is a spell, gain 1 resource, 0 cost to play, 1 willpower to commit. You gain 1 resource, and then you reveal 3 random tokens with the Chaos Block, and for every symbol token revealed, gain 2 additional resources. You can use Jacqueline Fine's ability to make this into 5 tokens. You do still have to you do have to choose 2 or 1 auto fail to get rid of, but potentially you can get anywhere from 1 to 1 to 9 resources using Jacqueline Fine's ability. Again, this is designed for Jacqueline, and it's great as a economy card. It's also great because it's a spell, which means I can get it using Arcane Initiate. One thing to note about Voice of Ra is there is a better version in the taboo list. As always, I do not play taboo, but the taboo is literally, it is every symbol. It does include things like bless and curse. Part of the reason why I end up not playing bless or curse with Jacqueline Fine is because I don't play taboo, and it actually makes this weaker because if you draw blessings and curses, they don't count. Anyway, that's the gist of it. So pretty much a caster with a little bit more token shenanigans, and that's about it. And of course, I mentioned before, we of course have arcane researches and down the rabbit hole to make it more eco-friendly with our experience. Anyway, Alessandra. Alessandra Zorzi, the Countess, Drifter Socialite, 3 willpower, 4 intelligence, 2 strength, 4 agility. You may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used to parlay. As an Elder Sign effect, it's +2, and if you succeed, choose a non-elite enemy at your location or at a revealed connecting location and automatically evade that enemy. I love a good party. 7 health, 7 sanity. On the other side, we got 30 card deck with Rogue 0 to 5, any cards with Parlay in it, 0 to 5, and then Neutral 0 to 5. And then she has 3 copies of Beguile as her exclusive, Zamacona as her exclusive weakness, and 1 random basic weakness. Alessandra's life of carefree luxury and enables her to hop from a stately gala in New York City to a banquet with the Maharaja of India with ease. The Countess has sampled every dish, drink, and dame from Marrakesh to Chicago. The regal title is just an act. However, behind the scenes, Alessandra uses her cover to pilfer from art galleries, banks, and the hearts and pocketbooks of the rich and frivolous. Her silver tongue has gotten her into and out of plenty of trouble. A new job with the shadowy Zamacana brought Alessandra to Arkham, Massachusetts, where the Countess learned that more lurks beyond the suggestible rich and frivolous success than she previously thought. So I was always a fan of like parlay cards, but prior to Alessandra coming out with Scarlet Keys, there wasn't a lot of good parlay cards. There was that clothing. There was Fine Clothing, which is a great body slot that can give you bonuses for parlay actions and things like that. The biggest awkwardness about Alessandra and all of her parlay stuff is you need enemies to make this work. So, and more specifically, in most cases, it has to be non-elite enemies. Some of it does work on elites, but not all of it. So on certain campaigns and scenarios, Alessandra can end up having like very little to work with. There are some ways in the deck that kind of help with that, but otherwise you're kind of just hoping that you get an enemy to play around with Alessandra. As for the deck, we do have In the Thick of It. We're taking 1 mental and 1 physical trauma. One thing you can do with Alessandra, since she does get access to all parlay cards, is there is like an energy drain attack or parlay card from Mystic that can let you get up to like 2 health back. So some people may opt to go 2 physical, but I'm not taking that card, so I'm not going to worry about it. So yeah, 2 1 physical, 1 mental trauma. 2 of the experience, of course, is going to go for Karen Doble. And then we do have also a bonded card here with Bianca Decatz, which we'll talk about in a bit. Her exclusive, we have 3 Beguiles. It's a trick, it's an event, and can be committed for 1 wild, and it costs 2 to play. It's fast to play, can only be played during her turn. You attach it to a non-elite enemy at your location. As an action, you parlay, either move the attached enemy to a revealed connecting location or perform a basic investigate or evade action at its location. If you fail a skill test while resolving this ability, discard Beguile, and you may activate this ability from any location. So you could throw this on an enemy and then just get out of there. What's nice about this is the basic investigate and evade action are part of the parlay, which means if you do have find close equipped, it does apply the reduced difficulty, which is really nice. This is actually very similar to Power Word, but it's cheaper, and in some ways it's actually much easier to work with. Power Word by itself, you have to be at the location to actually trigger the parlay effects for it, and yeah, it's honestly not too bad. If you can get it on something, you can kind of use it to just move. You can actually use it to move enemies to other real locations and just investigate by proxy, which is kind of nice. Besides that, let's see, her exclusive weakness is Zamakona, which is over here. Humanoid Criminal, again, criminal. If you happen to bring this to the house always wins, he does get aloof. 3 fight, 3 evade, 3 health. He's elusive, which we haven't really played around with. I believe elusive is introduced in Scarlet Keys, but the way it works is if you attack or he attacks, he will automatically exhaust. After it's all been resolved, he will automatically exhaust and move to another location. So he's kind of a pest that way, because you have to kind of chase him down to kill him, or hit him really, really hard. He spawns in the nearest empty location if able, and he cannot. Alessandra cannot parlay with Zamakona, so cannot use any of these parlay abilities on him. And the first time Alessandra parlays each round, you do place a Doom on Zamakona. He does hit for 1 damage. So yeah, he is kind of a pain. There's not much else to say about it. Some people will carry around Backstab on Alessandra because it can do 3 damage, so you can just try to one-shot Zamakona. But yeah, he's kind of an annoyance. You can still kind of play around it, around the Doom, and you can eventually get your fighter to go and deal with this if necessary. Anyway, her random weakness is 13th Vision, which we've messed with before. This is just you fail on ties, and it takes 2 actions to get rid of. Alright. So, everything else about this deck. We only get green cards and parlay cards. We spent 2 experience on Karen's Obel. Our 3rd experience is being spent on Existential Riddle. Insight Paradox. 1 cost event, commits for a willpower and an intelligence. This is a secret card, by the way, but it's a parlay, so we can use it. Parlay, choose a non-elite enemy at your location, test willpower or book 8. This test gets -1 difficulty for each other card in your hand. If you succeed, automatically evade the chosen enemy and attach Existential Riddle to it. Attached enemy gains aloof. So this is pretty much designed for Alessandra, because the biggest danger is you have to have an enemy nearby to use the parlays. But if you have an enemy nearby, that means you also need to account for it hitting you all the time. Parlay itself does not provoke, but passing turns with a monster active on you does. So this is just kind of solves that problem for you. You can, of course, attach this on... Funny enough, you can also attach it onto Jacqueline Fine's weakness, and just, kind of ignore it. Or in case if you get Bianca out, you can just throw it on her as well. An 8 book check is pretty rough, but of course you're probably going to at least have some cards in your hand to reduce the difficulty, and of course, again, it's a parlay, so if you have fine clothes, you can reduce the difficulty further. Also, if you happen to be using the well-dressed skill card, that commits for 4 wilds whenever it's used on a parlay check, so that is something you can always try as well. Anyway, as for the rest of the deck, as you can probably guess, it's mostly parlay cards. We do have a couple of backstabs, like I mentioned before. 3 cost events. You fight using your foot, and if you hit, you do +2 damage, so 3 damage in total. In fact, I think that does look like Alessandra, so that's kind of cool. We do have some bank jobs. Bank jobs. Yeah, so bank jobs is we've seen this before. It's double action, spend 2 to get 8. Um, we got an Eldritch Tongue. Again, new card for Alessandra here. We got Ritual. Takes up a arcane slot, 2-cost asset, commits for 1 willpower, has 4 charges on it. Whenever you play events with parlay from your discard, you may play events with parlay from your discard as if it were in your hand. As an additional cost, you will have to spend a charge from Eldritch Tongue, and you have to remove the event from the game. So it does remove the event from the game no matter what. So if you try to be cheeky and try to use Beguile, it's going to attach the monster and then remove it from the game, so it won't matter. So it's generally designed for things like it has to be parlay events. It'll be something like Rift and things like that. Or I guess well, actually, you won't be able to do it with this either. Yeah, so there's not too many things that benefit from Eldritch Tongue. That's why we only have one of them. But being able to do Grift 4 times is definitely pretty nice. We'll go ahead and talk about some assets. We got Fake Credentials. Got Item Elicit, takes up a hand slot, 3 to get out, commits for 1 book. Choose as an action, you can choose an enemy at your location and exhaust Fake Credentials. Parlay, test 1 book. This test gets +1 difficulty for each suspicion on Fake Credentials. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location and place 1 resource on Fake Credentials as suspicion. If you fail, you must either discard Fake Credentials or the chosen enemy attacks you. So what's really, it's kind of hard to understand how interesting and good this card is in most cases. In most cases, it's generally just here just so you can upgrade it to level 4. The level 4 is much better, but this does have some uses. If there's an enemy at the location, you can instead of investigating based off the shroud, you can instead investigate using this Fake Credentials, in which case it becomes a 1 test, which is a lot better. Also, if you do investigate it through Fake Credentials, you can of course use your free parlay action with it. So it's very helpful. Again, the biggest restriction is it's a parlay, which means you need to have monsters to play around with. Fine Clothes, we've talked about it already. 1-cost asset, takes up a body slot, commits for 1 foot, and reduces all parlay action skill tests by 2. Can reduce it down to 0. We got a Fox Mask, just gets +1 book, +1 agility, +2 agility for an offering, and the offerings come back if she ever moves out of a location with an enemy. Which, if you do things like, existential riddle, you can at least make it so it happens, which isn't too bad. Grift, parlay, choose an enemy at your location, test foot 0 for each point you succeed by, gain 1 resource up to a max of 6. If you fail, the enemy attacks you. So if you ever get the auto fail, it just hits you. We got some Guts. This is just to kind of help a little bit with our 3 willpower. That's about it. We got Leader de Lucas for additional action and soak. Some lucky cigarette cases to get some more card draw. Got some manual dexterities, of course, because we do have stuff that uses foot. We, of course, got some perceptions. We are trying to do some Cluven. Got some quick thinkings, of course, for extra actions. We got Started Pot, which is I believe we showed this off with Mandy. So, same thing. You can do a book test to essentially do AoE damage and potentially disengage and move away. We also have Vamp, which is kind of a wild card. Conveniently, it commits for 1 wild. For a 1-cost event, you choose an enemy at your location and then test 3. And you test any skill 3, and if you succeed, you'll do a certain effect. So, for example, if you do Willpower 3, you remove a doom from that enemy. If it's Book 3, you discover a clue. If it's Foot 3, you automatically evade the enemy, and if it's non-elite, you can move it. And if it's Fight 3, you'll deal 2 damage to it. By itself, it's not the best thing, but you can upgrade this, and if you upgrade it, you end up doing all 4 checks at all of them at 2s. So essentially with Fine Clothing, you can essentially do a lot of things with just 1 card there. And that's everything. So that is Alessandra and Jacqueline Fine. I'm a bit more concerned about this group. Some things you can also do with Alessandra is British Bulldog is definitely an option for her. She does have the 4 foot. And if she ever fails a parlay check, she can autoplay the Bulldog. But I opted to just hope that the Start of the Pot will be enough. And Start of the Pot is AoE, so it'll help against swarm cards. All right, so that is everything. We'll see how this goes. So I'm not super confident that we'll do super well in this, but we'll try. At the very least, we'll finally be done with majority of the characters and majority of the female investigators in this game. So, till next time, I am the Depressed Eeyore. This was Arkham Horror the card game, doing the Dream Eaters again, and I'll see you guys with Team A next time.